This is Anil with a video tutorial for the Learning Led on C programming. So in this video tutorial we're gonna see some more information on functions. So first we're gonna see how we can call a function from another function, and then we're gonna see how the control will be transferred from one function to another function and how it will be returned. So here for the demonstration purpose we're gonna use two other functions. So first I'm gonna prototype it. It's gonna be void function1, and it's not going to take any parameter. Then another one is void function2, and it also not going to take any parameters. So here in this main function we're going to use a printf statement, and we're going to say in main function. Then we're going to use another printf statement. That's why I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and we're going to say calling function1. Add a new line to both the printf functions. So then we're gonna call the function1. Then again we're gonna say in main function after returning from function1, and then we're gonna say finishing main function. So now we need to define this function1. So it's gonna be void function1, and it's not gonna take any parameters. So we're gonna use another printf statement here, and we're gonna say in function1, and then we're gonna say returning from function1. So from this function1 we're gonna call the function2. That's why it's gonna be function2, and before calling function2 we're gonna print a message like, okay, I'm calling the function2. That's why I'm gonna use a printf statement here, and I'm gonna say calling function2, and then after calling the function2 we're gonna say in function1 after returning from function2. So this is it, and the last thing we need to do for this tutorial is we need to define the function2. It's going to be void function2, and here we're just gonna use a printf statement, and we're gonna say in function2. Then we're gonna use the last printf statement in this program, and we're gonna say returning from function2. So this is it. So what we have done here is we just call the function1 from this main function. Then from that function1 we call the function2, and now we're gonna run this program, and we're gonna see how this control was transferred from this main function to function1, then this function1 to function2. So I'm gonna save it, compile and run. So it says in main function. That's because when the program starts execution it begins from the main function. That's why it's gonna say in main function. Then we call the function1. That's why we are calling the function1. Then the control will be transferred to this function1 to here. So it's gonna print in function1. Then it says I'm calling the function2 from this function1. That's why it says calling function2. Then the control will be transferred to this function2 from here. In this function2 it just prints in function2, and at last it just returns from this function2. So it says in function2 and returning from this function2. So when this function2 returns, it's gonna return to the caller of this function2, that's the function1, and then the remaining statements of this function1 will be executed. It's gonna print in function1 after returning from function2. So as you can see here, in function1 after returning from function2, then it says I'm returning from this function1. So returning from function1, and this function1 returns to its caller. So here that's the main function which called this function 1. That's why this function 1 is gonna return to this main function. So here, when this control returns to this main function, it's gonna execute the other statement of this main function. So it's gonna print in main function after returning from function 1, that is this printf statement, and then it prints finishing the main function. So after that, this getch is just for adding a pause, and then it just terminates our main function. So this is it. This is how we can call a function from another function, and this is how the control will be transferred from one function to another function. So the notable thing here is when we call this function 1, this function 1 is called the called function, and this main function is called the caller function. So a caller function is the one which calls another function. So a called function is one which is called by another function. So here this function 1 is called function, that's because it's been called by this main function. So if we talk about this function 1 and function 2, then this function 2 is called function because it is called from this function 1, and this function 1 is a caller function. So this is it. This is about some information about the functions. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next tutorial.